Right.
Now we're live. Hello, world. Comments.
Oh, those look great.
Good.
Oh, my mask. Don't need that. We are social distanced.
Did you see the text that we're starting with hard seltzer, Brandon?
Oh, that makes a lot of sense. I'm really glad you did that. I was actually going to text that we should do that.
Well, you were Silvad. He got there way before you.
Nice. Perfect.
We are now live. So
I was only imagining like Silva Stout. All right. Let's see what.
Yeah, I didn't want to end that way.
It's like it's kind of tinny, not chocolatey at all. How's MJ, sir?
She's good. She's working her tail off. Actually, gone through some changes with her day job, and so she, still working for Kashi.
Oh, right on.
Yep. And
she's a big wheel down at that cracker factory.
She's been able to maintain her job the whole time while you guys have been up at Paso.
Yeah.
Because aren't they based here? Isn't Kashi based in San Diego?
Yeah, it was, and then they shut it down, and then they opened another base in Solana Beach.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they were in La Jolla. They kind of disbanded, and then they put the team back together, and then they went into the building over in Solana, and but she was able to take her role to remote even well before this. So when we moved in 2015, and then she just had to come down. Well, at first it seemed like it was like once a month, and then then it became once a quarter, and then maybe a couple times a year, plus some travel to other places in the country for sales team meetings and stuff like that. So
awesome.
Yeah, so she's a pro at working remotely.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Got to recognize when you get a beard compliment. So there you go.
Nice.
We've got our standard baker's dozen. Let's fire it up. Hello and welcome to the Indie Beer Show. Well done, Brandon and producer Abel, for the screen gag. Tonight we are joined by legendary San Diego brewer who graduated and went off and opened his own brewery, Mr. Chuck Silva. Thank you for joining us, sir. Yes, golf clap, golf clap. If you could describe your role at Silva Brewing in less than 20 minutes, how would you do that?
It's I don't know, all encompassing.
Yes, that's
about
great.
Less than 20 seconds. I do everything. Chief, what is it? Chief bottle washer and I don't know, administrator. I do it all.
Chief janitorial officer.
Looking at some of the people.
Yeah, exactly. So, hi, Mr. Babineau, Mike, CJ, Paul Segura, for joining us early on and commenting. We appreciate that. If you are watching, give us a little shout out in the comments section just so that we know you're there. But yes, a heavily bearded show, like the beer gods intended, was everyone that was in beer would have a half-grade beer. Yes,
right. It's my own drummer.
It's so awesome. So we are starting. We're not even starting with beer. We're starting with a hard seltzer. It's called G-Fizz Blast. Let's see if I can get it out of the spotlight there. And this is a hard seltzer that is inspired by a Gin Fizz, correct?
True. Yes. A couple of things about the hard seltzer. I had to check it out. There was so much so much hype, so much synergy behind it, so much money going into it, and the fact that it was, it is still just selling like hotcakes. And so I go to the market, I buy some, I taste, and I was woefully disappointed.
Right.
And yeah, I mean, this is, aftertaste and chemical and just high fusel alcohol nonsense. And I, and at the urgings of MJ, my wife, I agreed to try to make a seltzer. But for me, I said we wouldn't do it. We wouldn't produce it unless it was a very clean tasting base beverage, and then we would start working on flavor profiles. So I did a bunch of yeast trials, I did fermentations, and lots of haze.
Wait, you did trial runs and experimentation before you released a product?
I know, it's pretty weird, really.
It's rare. It's very rare.
Usually I just said, do my homework, roll the dice, and go. But this was really new territory, and I did some reading. BSG has a really cool, one sheet on their website about seltzer production, and so I was checking that out and did some more online reading. Anyway, I ended up taking more of a winemaker's approach to making the base beverage. Since it's not cooked, it's not boiled. It's not boiled with a bittering balance. The fermentation is designed to be a complete fermentation, so you're going for, a 0 Brix or maybe even a negative Brix, and that's really the way winemakers operate. And so I just took that approach, and I figured out how to make a clean base. Actually, I'm using 2 different yeast strains, and one of them is a wine strain. And then I started modeling, flavor profiles that I like. And so the cocktail scene was attractive to me instead of all the just purely fruit laden seltzers that are, out there flavor wise. So the first one,
you didn't just dump fake watermelon flavoring in some bubbles and call it a beverage?
Pretty close. No, but so we made a Mojito Blast was our first flavor because it just seemed easy for me to conceptualize lime and mint, and it just seemed like it would be easy to get there and still not add sugar back or do anything weird. I just figured it would be an easy way to capture those flavors and still keep it dry. The glycogen in this seltzer lends a kind of sweet perception, and that's part of the key. I'm giving out secrets that
please, we want them. Please help other hard seltzer producers produce a dry, crisp beverage like this. This is what stands out to me the most, beyond the cocktail-ish-esque flavor. And oddly enough, a ginny nose. I didn't really know that I knew what a ginny nose was until this, but very enjoyable, especially with that dry, crisper finish than what I'm used to from most hard seltzers. So kudos to yours, sir. And talk about clear. I mean, it's as clear as water.
Yeah. So anyway, so that's fun. We made 3 flavors. I could certainly make many others, but I got it done, and so we have that offering, and we keep one of them on draft at the tasting.
What are the other 2?
The Mojito Blast and the Paloma Blast.
I love this. I actually love the artwork because it reminds me of Mardi Gras, but also it's very nice in general. But like, great color selection.
Thanks. Yeah, this one. The others are more singular in their color. This one is the most complex with the 3 color schemes.
Looks like a king cake. I love it.
Hello, Estella. Welcome to the show.
Hi, guys. Sorry, I'm tardy.
It's okay. You had computer problems. Did you get the early? Did you get the early message that we were starting with the hard seltzer?
She's drinking it right now.
I'm on it.
Oh, all right. I didn't
it.
catch it. All right. You're with us. While you're getting acclimated, let's catch up with the right hand side. David Carr says hello, Chuck.
Hey, Dave.
John's checking in, saying hello. Nick's here.
Hey.
This is actually one of my workers. Hey, Nick. Nice to see you, man. Hello, Mrs. Babineau. Always nice when you join us. And yes, Mr. Segura. You first off, yes, he made a seltzer. But if you were at our house, you would have a shot at some Silva Stout before the end of the show. And if my research is correct, Silva Stout's not even released this year yet, is it?
No. So that's why we
love
did
that shit.
Can.
Yes, we love. Of course, we happen to be at the level of beer geekdom that we really enjoy unavailable products. So just that extra.
Paul Segura. Ugh.
Yeah, exactly. for once in our life, we've got a beer that Paul can't have. That's right.
Oh boy, savor it, people, savor it.
Right? Exactly. Suck it up. Soak it up. All right, Chuck. Let's jump in the Wayback Machine. It's 2015. You are one of the 2 or 3 most recognizable brewmasters here in San Diego County, and you're working for the 4th largest brewery here. You've pushed them to make it into the top 50 craft beers in all of America, and then we hear you're leaving, and it was real quick from announcement to the time that you were gone, and you run away with your new wife MJ up to Paso Robles. What? what led all that to happen? And was it as fast and dramatic for you as it felt like it was for us?
No, it was a long time coming for me, actually. There were a lot of things going on in the company that were red flags for me. So let's just cut to the chase.
I was being nice and not even mentioning what the brewery was, but we all know.
Yeah, and I had made a determination that a year before I left that I was going to leave, and then it's just a matter of how I was going to do it. Became that was I going to go work for another brewery. My wife at the time, my girlfriend, fiance, I should say, urged me to, actually, no. Let's see. When did I propose to her? I gotta think about
backwards
that.
Engineer your own timeline.
Anyway, she said, no. You need to go open your own brewery. And I just knew that would just be really tough. It'd be really hard because, and I'll just kind of jump forward just a little bit. The whole goal was no partners.
Yeah.
0 partners, no investors, and we
no one to answer to.
And so it's just the 2 of us. And so that you don't have, the financial backing, you don't necessarily have additional expertise in, coming to the table and helping through the day-to-day operations, or even say compliance or accounting expert, or, expertise that I don't have. We're not getting by having partners. So we put ourselves at a disadvantage in that way. So anyway, going back, so I saw that there were just red flags, and I didn't agree with a lot of the things that were going on. And I set myself on a course that was a year long before. I mean, think about sticking around a year long in a company that you're not happy with.
Oh, I've done that a lot.
It's not.
It's
fun.
not easy. It's not easy.
It'll turn a passion into work real quick.
Right, especially if things happen to the product, like an alcohol shift on your number 1 flagship IPA to an 8%, turning it into a double, and actually being dictated that was going to happen. as a why, as a value added proposition, no, it didn't work out so well. And I was really disappointed. I knew, and if it ever came down to, dictated changes like that on recipes, that I'd be looking for the door. And sure enough, that actually is one of the things that led me down that path. Now, you want to ask, or do you want me to keep going?
Keep talking.
So I finally figured out how to kind of rearrange things for my life. I ended up selling my condo and moving into MJ's place in Escondido, and there were all these things that happened for the first half of 2015, and which is actually when we got married in May of 2015. So we did all these things in preparation for going forward. And while we're on honeymoon in Hawaii, we're sitting in the cabana and asking each other, well, how do we finish the second half of the year? How do we go forward? And it became clear that we couldn't figure it out without making a move. And so I said, well, let's just make a move. Let's buy a house, and we'll be set, and we won't be renting a house and have to potentially get kicked out, like if we're in the middle of a brewery project and then all of a sudden have to move, because the lease came up, and who knows, right? You just don't know. Let's take uncertainty out of the picture. So we sold her place in Escondido, bought a place in Paso Robles. We searched around the county a little bit. San Luis Obispo is just way too expensive. And she fell in love with the downtown vibe of Paso Robles. And I really wanted to be in wine country. So we're surrounded by hundreds of wineries, and it's perfect. And then we decided on downtown where it was walkable to the restaurants. And so that narrowed our search down to like a 3 by 15 block section of town that we were actually looking for a house in. And we went through a couple offers actually that didn't work out, and then we finally jumped on this place. It wasn't even on the market when we saw it. So literally I agreed to buy the house over a FaceTime.
Whoa.
And we put we had a FaceTime with our agent, and we put in an offer. And then of course we still had a chance to come, of course, and walk through it and, go through the process. But it just, we had to get it done. And it's 5.5 hour drive from here.
Yeah.
To San Diego, as if you catch LA, right?
Oh yeah, 5. I make it 5.
Well,
Yeah. you got a heavy
early
foot for
for
it 4.5 if you go real fast and it's COVID. And then you can fly through LA. Yeah.
Yeah.
The grapevine gets dramatically easier when there's COVID, right? Yeah. I can make it through that pretty quick.
Yes, no problem at all. As long as no one's on the road, you can drive pretty quick through California. But so you found a place in downtown Paso, and then somehow you ended up with being able to open a brewery within walking distance of this home that you bought over FaceTime.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Like, how does that happen?
I don't know. Just things kind of came together. And it's not super ideal. It's a small, warehouse space, but it had actually already been approved by the city through the DRC. Yeah. So it had a conditional use permit already to allow for a brewery. So, excuse me.
So, was there a brewery that was going to open in the space that failed, or was there a brewery that had already opened there and failed?
Yeah, so the landlord and the owner of the poorhouse opened a brewery called Paso Robles Brewing. And I think after 6 months, they figured out that it was just more than they wanted to continue with.
And for those who haven't been there, the poorhouse is connected to Silva by a common hallway that goes to the restroom and such that they share. So
all in the same building. It's only like a 6,000 square foot building altogether. Oh, wow. And anyway, so I was at the poorhouse having a beer, and owner came up, and he knew me from the past, and had supported my beers from the past. And he stepped in and said, "Hey, you want to look at this space in the back?" He said, "I don't know what you're doing with Silva Brewing, but we had announced that we were going to open Silva Brewing in Paso Robles." And so he showed me the space, and he had a motorhome in it, and a Dodge Dart, and mechanics tools, and some bicycles, and some kid stuff. And so it was his his storage, and he was going to clear it out, and I said, "Well, it's way too small, but it's it's convenient, and it is technically in town, even though it's kind of on the outskirts of town, the edge of town. But it seemed attractive to me that it would be like an easy way to get a small start, and something that would be manageable with a lower rent, with the smaller square footage." So I agreed to go back with a tape measure and check it out. And so I went back, a few times and measured, and then I got my graph paper out and I mapped out the most I could put in the space. And to me, it made it a manageable brewery with this very small tasting room, which also seemed doable. It's a small town. There's 30,000 people in Paso Robles, so it's not San Diego.
Yeah,
it's
not even El Cajon as far as population.
No, not even. Not even.
It's much nicer than El Cajon. Don't get me wrong. I'm saying numbers wise.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
No. But
and so, speaking of, you could barely fit your brewery and tasting room in this facility. Why don't you kind of tell the people that haven't had a chance to visit, like Mr. Braggy Pants on Brandon? Why don't you kind of tell us what what we would see and what we would expect to see from visiting your facility?
Sure. So upon entering, if you can, I got to qualify this. You can enter our facility through the poorhouse, actually. Right. So if you go to the hallway, like you're going to go to the bathrooms, and hang a right through the door, you're in our place. Or you can enter through the alley, which is technically, according to the city, our entrance.
Much more traditional for San Diego people. We go in through alleys, back warehouse doors.
Sure. Yep. Hey, there's a roll-up door open.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah, exactly.
It's an invitation.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Be careful about those roll-up doors. Yes. So you can cruise in through, and it puts you right in between. The seating is very linear along. Follows down the outer wall. Between that and the tanks that's it for tasting room. It's like only an 8-foot wide section, and maybe it's 30, 40 feet deep to the back of the bar, and then it opens up in that kind of poorhouse area with the tasting bar with the 12 taps, 8 in a box on the back. So all direct draw kegerator style. I got 4 on the front, 8 on the back. And we have a beer engine, so we do Firkin Fridays every Friday. Nice. Before COVID.
Yes. And maybe post-COVID too.
Yeah, and I actually have 2 beers that were already filled, and they're actually not going to be any worse for the wear. One of them was affectionately called the Big 2-0. Which we had no idea what the Big 2-0 was going to hold in store for us. But in January, we released a nice hoppy barley wine, caramely hoppy barley wine, and we called it the Big 2-0. So we actually bottled it, we released it, and we sold through. We actually still have a little bit of draft left. So I think we have 1 backup keg. We have 1 on and 1 backup, and then we have a cask of that we've been sitting on this whole time. And then the other cask that we have that was pre-COVID is a Belgian. It's actually the base beer for the beer that we're going to have a couple from now.
Nice.
Cool.
The beverages, but it's without the Brett in the cask.
Oh, nice.
So that should be a fun cask.
And definitely, it definitely the type of beers that a year later, a lot of times are even a little improved. So that's awesome. Let's catch up with the sidebar. Oh, I love this. I'm so sorry, Paul. I'm so sorry.
I like Rick's comment. Rick's
He
comment is
doesn't
great.
hate me though.
No,
I don't know
He
why.
doesn't hate me.
I don't know why he's got to hate.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yes, we even if I think back to the time, I think all of us was like, why on earth would they change the beer that says West Coast IPA on the label? Like it just it was like trying to run with your shoelaces tied. It's very weird. It was a very weird move, but I can understand how it must have hurt internally being the person that put that beer and that brewery, and to a lot of people even give you the credit for bringing recognition to even the style of West Coast IPA. So I can understand how fucking with your baby would hurt internally. Salud Mudo, sorry, I added an N to your name. Hello, Maggie. Nice to see you. This is a very important question coming in from Mr. Segura. That's
hateful, Segura.
When do we get the San Diego Silva Brewing tasting room?
Paul's offering capital for this. I love it. I think it's great. He's going to manage the place for you. It's going to be sweet.
I'm glad that David loves the setup. That's awesome. There you go. Is Alter Ego on tap currently?
We did open up with an alt beer. I don't have it on tap right now, but that's a fun reference to Hops Bistro and Brewery days.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Way back. Obviously, you've known Paul Segura for a couple weeks. We can tell.
Yeah, you know, a lot of people listening probably don't know the whole legend of you two and your relationship. Maybe you should just like touch on it real quick for everybody so they can be in on the gag.
The legend.
The
legend of Bagger Vance.
Where was the first place that you two worked together?
So actually, before I worked for Paul Segura, I apprenticed with him for a bit. So I was actually doing an apprenticeship at Hops Bistro and Brewery, interestingly enough, for the American Brewers Guild. And Chris Leonard was the brewer there. It was a one-man show at, as a lot of brew pubs are. And Paul Segura was one of a two-man show down at Hang Ten Brewing Company. And during that time, there were only a certain number of brews that would occur at the brew pub. And Paul was brewing quite a few more per week. So I asked if I could come down and get some more, brew time to get more familiar with the equipment during my apprenticeship. And he said, yeah, come on down. And he actually had another apprentice that was a classmate of mine, Jason. And email popped up. Slud Carbahol is wanting to talk.
Yes, it's very important.
So the apprenticeship first, and then as I was finishing, I was back in class, and then I stayed in touch with Paul, and I had started to get resumes out to the handful of breweries in San Diego at the time, and as it turns out, Paul needed somebody to replace assistant brewer, and he hired me. So I actually got hired before I left the class, and he said Monday morning, 8:00, rubber boots.
Nice.
And so he hired me in 1998 in April.
Wow.
So the important question is, did Paul have hair then?
No.
All right, want to know.
Paul, don't listen to them. I love you, okay? Don't listen to any of them.
I think the hate is going both ways at this point. I just want to feel love. I come on here every Thursday to feel some love, but I don't know what's going on.
I was going to say, I fall in the category of someone that's been bald since they were 20. Paul, I feel your pain, man. So let's catch up. I was like balding in high school. Like it happens. Hello, Chef. He'll be on the show.
Arborist.
He'll be on the show in about a month and a half to talk about their Virgin's new location. I saw their pictures of their new kitchen going in. The equipment, it's all brand new. You must be super stoked, Chef, to have a whole brand new kitchen. That's awesome. Yes, we agree, Jeremy. Mr. Silva is a legend. That's why we have him on the show. Now, I'm not touching that one. And yes, Mr. Segura, you got a dang. In retrospect, it's easy to say that you had an amazing helper at the time. 20 years later, but I'm changing things up a bit. Before we get into our top three, I need a second beer, and really, I need a beer. Hard seltzer is awesome and everything, but it's not the indie seltzer show. So the first beer of the night, Galaxy on Rye Hazy, and here it's going in the glass. Why don't you give us kind of a breakdown on this beer, Chuck, and what we're about to be tasting?
Well, it's hazy and it's hoppy.
Yes, excellent breakdown. Well done.
All right, so my breakdown for that is it's still unapologetically West Coast.
Yeah.
Hazy. We figured out a couple things on the haze side, and so the texture is really kind of silky with oats, but also flaked rye contributes a nice haze quality as well. And the rye plays so well with the Galaxy hop. We didn't want to just make it 100% Galaxy, so we're playing a little kind of 50-50 play with the Citra Galaxy, considering that to be a kind of a complementary. I think Citra works with everything. I swear, it's like the best new hop. But
I was gonna say, so does Galaxy. So we call them cheater hops. But I agree with Alex. Your initial breakdown was on freaking point. Hola to you, Herm. Thanks for joining us.
This is one of the best hazy IPAs I ever had, because it does still pay homage to West Coast IPAs with the nice bitterness in the back. You still get all the great IBU, the IBUs that you want from an IPA, but man, the texture on it's great. It's not overly done. It's not overly thick. It's just, but so much, just this abundance of hop presence for the two varietals that you're talking about, and they do sync together just great. I mean, And there's a sandwich made of hops on the can.
Yes, the artwork is great.
Epic. I didn't mean to break in, but I'm not a big hazy IPA fan. I really, really, really.
Yeah.
So while we're enjoying this, how did you move into canning all of your beers? Do you have a line? Do you guys have a mobile canner up there? I mean, it seems like it would be a little more of a difficult situation for a mobile canner with how small you're describing your facility to me.
Yes. Let me give you all that detail. I want to talk about this beer just a little bit more, if you don't mind.
Okay. No. We're a beer show. Please tell us about the beer.
You're talking to a guy that spent 20 years making clear beer.
Yes.
I'm just saying. So we didn't set out. Of course, I had a notebook when we were starting our planning for Silva Brewing, and hazy IPA was not listed once in that notebook anywhere. So interestingly enough, the demand just continues to soar and surge, and this is the second hazy IPA that we've made, by the way. The first one's called Luscious IPA, and that one's a Citra Mosaic combo. Just got EBMO approval, by the way, for that one.
Ooh.
So that should help the business a little bit. But I got so many questions like, hey, are you going to make a hazy? Or, do you like hazy? You know, and so I kind of had mixed review about that. I like some I don't. Some are, you know, so soft, and I like them, you know, for a half a beer, and then I don't like that second half of beer. Or I like them for one beer, but not a second beer. Those types of things. So I found my place, and how to make a hazy that makes me happy.
And I think you found a place that makes us happy too.
I was gonna say this makes me real happy.
Nice.
Really, really happy.
Oh,
I filled it up again. I filled it up again.
So we're using, you know, all the new techniques and some of the older techniques. I'm actually doing mash hop, first wort hop, and then all from there, no kettle layering, just a flame out whirlpool hop and massive addition, and then the rest is dry hop. I think the other couple of things is maybe something that the other guys aren't doing is the mash hop and first wort hop. Maybe some are, maybe some aren't. But we're using Citra Noble, interestingly enough, for our first wort hop. Citra Noble, this is a questionable look, right? Brandon, I'll answer that question, and I'll say that Citra Noble is the byproduct of the cryo product.
Yeah.
So there are leftover, you know, hop materials after they glean the most resinous portion of it, and you still have some resin value, but it's a very low level compared. So you're getting a verdant, low bittering addition that still has a, you know, flavor contribution. And I just thought it would be a fun way to get some more Citra qualities and give it just a little bit of something for the boil, a little bit of hop structure in the boil.
Well, and like you like you said, you come from 20 years of hops go in when you start boiling.
Yeah.
Or before.
Exactly.
And so I can see how it took you a little bit to find, like you said, your pie of the hazy. But you know, I really like that you got a solid haze. You didn't pull out a misty or a foggy, as we call the beers that are just that to me look more like someone messed up a West Coast instead of made a hazy. Like, you know what I mean?
Right.
Like they didn't get any stable turbidity. So like this one hits in between, you know, like I can't see my finger behind the glass. It's definitely full haze, and really, really enjoy having an actual bitter backbone on any beer, let alone one that has this amount of hop aroma and flavor, man. Well done.
Thank you.
Thumbs up.
And you still get all the terroir of the galaxy. So even though I've got some Citra in there, it's got that really cool, you know.
So is this one distributed at all? Like, could I buy it in San Diego?
No, sorry. We do actually sell cases online, and then we'll. I'm not sure if we have them active right now, but they will be because we still have a pretty full tank. So maybe tomorrow or the next day we'll get that online, and actually also some mixed cases too. So we're doing mixed cases shipped via GSL.
Awesome.
Now, that being said, we do some direct shipments. Joey at Vine and Vine has bought some of our beer, and a good amount. And then also Bottlecraft so far, Bottlecraft in Solana Beach and Liberty Station. And they both got the Galaxy. Well, anyway, they'll probably get more. So those would be where you would find it in San Diego.
That's awesome, man.
Awesome.
And so I don't think we got out of you what your canner is or how you're canning your product.
All right. So we actually have a high quality canning can filler that is a benchtop canner. It's a counter pressure filler from Express Fill. It's actually built in San Luis Obispo. Wow. And it is like I said, a counter pressure. It has a pre-purge, pre-pressurization, and we fill. It's a 2-spout filler, so I'm hand indexing 2
Wow.
cans at a time. And,
Wow.
yeah, and then we're using an October seamer, and we've gone through in 2020 we probably did 30,000 cans.
Wow.
Starting when we started, like we started in April.
30,000 cans, 2
Wow.
cans, and hand seaming at a time.
Wow.
That's amazing, man. Well done.
Hey, we had to do what we had to do. I mean,
Yeah.
actually, so much of my business was either, on site. Maybe that was 20%, and then 25%, and then we were in keg distribution, and so I lost overnight. I lost 75% of my business, and no, I actually literally lost 100% of my business overnight. And the only thing that I could do to get it back was first I sold crowlers because I didn't have my labels yet. We were already going down the road of doing the canning. So here's for instance, I was keg distribution in LA all the way to San Diego with Stone Distributing.
Mhm.
And they always would ping me, for the need of samples, and I couldn't provide samples, or not easily, in a convenient format for the sales team, and then continually provide them fresh, and in a way that would just kind of roll with the kegs,
Right.
and so that was always a point of contention between us and Stone Distributing. So we actually ended up parting ways because we didn't when we got shut down, and they got stuck with keg inventory, nowhere to sell it, and we didn't have any canned product. Again, at that point, we're not a supplier that means anything to them, and so we discontinued the relationship. But then shortly, I was working towards it. As I said, I had acquired the equipment. I was getting the last equipment January, February, March, and then the labels when we got shut down. And I was so worried that the label company was going to be shut down and wouldn't be able to get back online. We wouldn't get labels, so then we would have to Avery label our cans or something. We were gonna do it. We were going down that road. So luckily, the label company, they got back online and got us labels, and we filled our first cans first week of April.
Wow.
Yeah.
2 at a time.
A year ago. Wow.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of breweries here and all across the country that really all they had was their Crowler October Seamer, and they did 1 can at a time. That unit, that October Seamer, saved so many breweries throughout our state and several others. Just a beast. It works for a long, long time with very minimal maintenance. So, at the same time, you built up some arm strength, didn't you?
I just finished canning. I don't know. We did 28 cases today. Yeah, it was a little short, what I wanted to do, but we got a little later start, and then I had to cut away to, get prepared for the show. I wanted to be here.
Yeah,
so it's our fault. So it's our fault.
Yeah, it's our fault. It's our fault that his April sales will be down because he couldn't can enough in March.
Right.
Yes, it's awesome. So
go ahead.
Let's jump into our top 3. This in honor of Chuck, we decided to talk about beers that we would miss if we decided to leave San Diego.
You would never do that, though. I mean,
I know.
I thought of it because Chuck was on, and I figured
yes, exactly.
This would be a good top 3.
And since it is your idea, Stella, let's start with you. What's the number 3 beer that you would miss terribly if you bailed on our lovely hometown?
It would definitely be Deft Brewing. Dawn of the Deft is a beer that I would truly miss. I'm not a huge porter fan, but this is one that I actually want to drink a lot of. So if I were to leave, which I would never leave, but if I were to leave, it would be Dawn of the Deaf for sure. So shout out to Mo.
Good choice. And it's always nice when we mention amazing people on the show. Mo is such a great person. Saves dogs in his outside the brewery.
Saves kegs.
Goes and saves kegs when he can. Just good guy. Mr. Hernandez.
I just saw Mo today in person. He dropped that. He dropped off what might be next week's beer of the week.
Ooh, we'll see.
Teaser. So I'm going to go the Estella route, and I'm going to have a tie.
No way.
Yeah. So it's a useful tool if you utilize it correctly. My tie is between New English Brewing and the most underrated West Coast IPA, or at least talked about when it's so good, Pure and Simple. I think that beer is fantastic. Anytime I come across it, I'm more than happy to put some of it in my beer hole. And then, another one, because we're talking about IPAs West Coast, Trivana from Belgian.
Oh,
I love that beer so much. It's got everything about it just works for me, and I've probably consumed more of that. I think in the last 2 years, probably than any single West Coast IPA, because I just really like it a lot. So those two would be a bummer to miss out on, and coming from IPA Central down here and going somewhere else, that would be tough to leave.
Yeah.
And Trivana was a Sorai Cup winner, so I always like that when those come up too.
Had some last night.
Oh, nice. How about you, Abel?
It was a little difficult for me just because I drink a lot of beers from this one place, Fall Brewing. And so
I heard of that place. I've heard of it.
Yeah, they won an award. I guess they won some San Diego Beer News Award.
Well deserved. I voted for him. Right.
It was one of those things where it was hard to pick one because I like all their beers, but I wanted to keep it simple. So it's the Let's Go IPA.
Nice.
By Fall Brewing. Just the basic IPA West Coast style. My other choice was the 2 AM bike ride. So those are my two tops from Fall. But yes, I could not live without the Let's Go IPA by Fall Brewing.
Good one.
I don't even know if I would want to live without it. Like, all of your answers are making me doubt my list hard. That's okay.
Yes.
Did you want to play, Chuck? Are there beers that you miss from San Diego that you could even rank?
Oh man. Well, there's so many that I don't even know. You guys are talking about beers that I've never had.
Yes.
And so I would maybe a nod to AleSmith or even Society. I see a couple over here, 394 and the Harley. And I'm familiar with those, but I don't know if I could pick one out right now. I'm not prepared to do that.
I hear that. That's really cool.
Start thinking of a number one.
And you have to think about it. You have to think about it. I left, exactly. So I do like to come back and bounce around. When there's not a pandemic going on.
Yes. Yep. And Alex has given us some terrific advice. Don't move to Kansas. So we do appreciate that. So for me, this might be the beer I've actually mentioned the most in my podcasting career, but it's Ponto from Pizza Port. If I ever left the Southern California region that they distribute in, it would hurt my soul to not drink.
That would devastate you. Like, it would devastate you.
Love me some Ponto. I would just say, I think I would say Pizza Port in general.
Well, so we try to make it hard and not claim a whole brewery, but indeed, this beer for me is just one of the super rare under 5% beers that offers me enough flavor that is satisfying as a hoppy beverage. And super light body, crushable like a light lager, but it satisfies my hop-headed needs.
Just good.
Exactly, just freaking good. So
I could come up with a list of beers that a lot of them probably just aren't even made regularly. I mean, Seaside Stout and
Yes.
I don't know.
Chuck, you feel free to make that list and send it to us, and we'll talk about it.
Dawn Patrol, and there's
Dawn Patrol.
Yeah.
We had some.
I'm glad you can get some pizza port, Alex. It would hurt me.
In Fresno, nice. Okay.
Il Rev Silva Stout is not released this year yet. We will be enjoying it on the show today, but it will be coming out later this year. And if we meaning San Diego gets really lucky, there'll be some maybe at Vine and Vine and Bottlecraft. We're just gonna have to say Dependamente, like maybe.
Dependamente.
It's a very out there maybe type of thing. So
I have not communicated with those folks about Silva Stout at all yet, and
I don't think you need to. I don't think you need to be like, hey, do you think? I think they're going to be like, yes, please send it to us.
I think you just have to let them know it's available, and I think it will work itself out. But since we can't go Silva Stout. Yeah, we're going to save it for a little later in the show. We're going to go with something that you also have been known for is just making some beers that are a little unique, and so Vivace is what we're opening right now. And thank you for including a freaking nice bottle in for our show. And this beer sounds incredibly interesting, but why don't you tell us what the process and thought process was behind this product?
Sure. A very, very complex beer. First, I'll start with the name. Vivace, in the label spelling, is actually a phonetic breakdown of an Italian word vivace, which is Vivace with that accent. And vivace means lively, and the beer is lively, both in flavor, aroma, and condition. And so I coined it as a rustic ale. You could call it a rustic Belgian ale. You could even think about it as a rustic Italian style ale in kind of the approach that it's made. So it does use a Belgian yeast, and we're ready for Vivace. Here comes my Vivace. Thank you.
Chuck, can I ask you a question real quick?
Sure. Go ahead.
What is an Italian ale? Like I don't know what that is. So I mean, can you explain it to me?
Italians have a craft beer scene a lot like we do. Not quite as evolved and developed, but they look at whether it's a German Pilsner or actually in this case Belgian Belgian ale production, and I think they're inspired or co-inspired by the Belgian ales and even inspired by American versions of Belgians. So there are a lot of really fun and unique Italian artisan ales out there that have very Belgian leanings, and that's what I would say about that.
Okay.
And ingredients, and so the Vivace port. I don't know. Can you see my glass? Probably not.
No.
Here, we will right now. You got to lift. Your glass is not visible, but there you go.
To do a proper.
Is that a rayon? It's a rayon vert glass, even.
This is a very similar style beer. So it obviously has some inspiration from a Belgian ale, one very, very popular one called Orval. So let that beer foam blossom. Mm-hmm. Look at the conditioning. It's just the bubbles are just raging off the bottom, even more so than a Pilsner would. Anyway, lovely beer foam, wildly aromatic. So it's we could call it a wild ale. You could call it a Belgian IPA, which I wouldn't. I'd rather not. Anyway, so it's definitely it's very complex. So we make a Belgian ale base, and I do a side fermentation with Brux, and then I bring the then I bring it together before packaging. So I do I bring in some of the beer into the Brux ferment, some of that original yeast, which is the Boston ale yeast, and that produces a somewhat fruity Belgian, Belgian style ale. So after we get the Brux flavor development, then I bring that yeast into that, small percentage of the beverage. And then we use that for blending at packaging or prior to packaging. And so then we have already got a Brett flavor development in the finished product. We're not waiting for it to occur over years per se. And with that, I think the Brett culture is a little bit stronger, and it also can act to dry out the beer maybe a little sooner and provide even more lively condition early.
Now, is Brux what you used back in the day with Ray and Barrett treasure chest?
Yeah.
I mean, it smells like the first time I smelled that beer. It's got all that horse blankety fun thing, the barnyard type things that we talk about, and it's just it's leaping from the glass, which is really fun.
Yeah, and additionally with the dry hop, I just have to, sorry, Brian, I have to add this note. It brings with dry hop and the herbaceousness of that barnyardy note, it comes across more geraniol, if you will, almost like geranium. So that's like a perfume maker's sort of descriptor, but geraniol is really prominent. And kind of a fun note, I opened a Rayon Bear this year that was probably 8 years old, and it still had a fresh, vibrant character. It wasn't like an aged barley wine or an aged IPA. It still had a fresh geraniol quality. So it was really, really something that I wanted to, take from, what I learned about making Rayon Bear to make our version here.
Well, indeed, Vivace to you, sir.
For sure, man.
I think what my mouth wants to add to this conversation is that geraniol effect also kind of reads like a pink peppercorn addition, even though you don't have it in there. That's what it's reading as. Incredibly complex. I assume, and that we're not going to have all the time to do that. I assume this thing completely keeps changing sip to sip if you let it go through the temperature scale and warm back up to room temperature. Terrific product, sir. Thank you.
Absolutely.
And great spreading bubbles. It's like you give it a nice swish in your mouth. You can feel the little bubbles just like cleaning you out for the next sip. It's great. It just goes away. Something else.
So, fun side note for me is that before I made Rayon Bear and before I made this, I would say, spend some time at the Toronado in San Diego. And if I was feeling a little, IPA palate fatigue, I might find myself in the course of an evening finding my way to an Orval bottle. And I always felt like that helped reset my palate. It helps sort of cleanse my palate. It took me away from the intense resinous, hop character, and then I could either go back to it or progress on to whatever else I was interested in. But I find a beer like this to be just an amazing cleansing beer, as well as so multifaceted and complex, and would be great with food.
No question, it would go with almost anything that had, especially anything grilled or toasted. Like, I think it would fit with that Maillard reaction flavor area incredibly well. And then on the low end for like our more realistic stoner type of listeners, definitely a pizza beer. It would crush with pizza for sure.
I was thinking avocado toast with Espelette.
There you go. Exactly. It's
I was thinking albondigas. This would be great with albondigas.
Definitely great with albondigas.
Yes, I was like, I want to have this with some albondigas.
That's awesome. All right. So, I mean, you've right. That'd be really good too. You've kind of not said it out loud yet, but I have a feeling that we know what your answer is going to be like. How did COVID and this year of operating under restrictions affect your beer production levels?
Oh, so we took an immediate dip, of course. So the closure came March 18th, March 19th, and so we had to close right away. So all of a sudden, stay-at-home order became, how do we get people to come and buy, crowlers? Well, as it turns out, that wasn't so hard. So the beer that we had, people still wanted beer. So go figure. So people, they abided, and actually, we're not such a an incredibly tech savvy community here. There are a lot of some more old school folks, and they just want to do things on a handshake or face to face, or it's just that there's a little bit of that mentality here, and it's a warm feeling, but we were like, we don't want to be warm and fuzzy with you right now, so figure out how to order on the internet, so we had to get our Square store up and running. MJ, kudos to her, she busted it out, and she dove in to figure out how to get the online store to curbside in a couple nights, and man, I've got the right partner, I'll tell you. She's all about getting it done. And anyway, so we dropped. We basically stopped brewing. The kind of the cool thing about this, I don't know why things work out for us sometimes the way they do, even though we've been operating at a loss for the entire year. We had all the right beer in the tank. We had just brewed the first 4 beers that we were going to can. It was all part of our plan. As I had mentioned, we were working towards it.
Right.
And we had finished a couple of them, and then we were just finishing the last 2. So what did we do? Dylan and I, my assistant brewer, we stood in the cellar and canned beer for 3 months straight and filled curbside orders. That's really what we did. We didn't, and before we finally drained a tank, and we're like, oh shit, I guess we got to brew some beer. So yeah, it was a drastic cut. I don't even remember now what my final numbers were, year over year, but shoot, I'm sorry.
It's totally cool. What's your feeling? Did you brew half as much as 19?
Probably. Yeah.
Okay. That seems to be a kind of a common answer, is somewhere in that 50 to 60%. So a 40 to 50% reduction in production. And
because we're canning slower, some people were doing the can ban so they can can faster, and maybe they have a larger footprint already and larger distribution footprint. That was all new to us. So the cans, we just started releasing out our back door, our front door, and we did finally start sending some to our distributor north, Delta Pacific Beverage, and they're based out of Manteca, originally Stockton now. And so we lost our relationship with Stone. Delta Pacific is a very craft centric, no big guy. So it was another, craft distributor. They've embraced us, and they took in cans where they were taking kegs, and now they started taking our cans. And we finally just got some keg orders back from them. So.
And then I think earlier in the show you mentioned some new Bevmo orders. It's always nice to get your stuff in Bevmo.
Yeah. So And I used to have a little bit of a mixed feeling about, the Bevmo and shelf turn and dry storage versus cold storage and that sort of thing. But it's become a really kind of a hotbed for craft beer. I think it's taken on a new focus, for them internally. And so it just seems like a really good outlet for us at this time, especially with our distributor relationship.
Well, and from what you described, you're probably giving them a little less than they want, and so those beers are going to go fast in a bigger box store like Bevmo. And as long as your beer is moving quickly and it's not sitting on the shelf for a month without any refrigeration, you make great products. Your products are shelf stable. You're a professional. You're not selling. What I'm saying is you're not selling fruit slushy can bombs. So,
no. This wasn't my first time. You're right.
Yeah, exactly. like you know what you're doing, dude. So I wouldn't be afraid to take a month-old IPA off a shelf if it had your name on it. Whereas there are times where that would make me nervous at Costco if I was getting a month-old IPA from a brewery that was maybe not as established with their quality procedures and their QC. I would more want a week-old IPA from them, but I'm sure yours are fine. So throughout the pandemic, what was your top-selling beer for the last, year or 13 months or so?
Oh, I think it was the Hop Maniac. But the Luscious IPA was our other IPA, so that was our first hazy. Yakima Express, our Imperial IPA, was the third flavor, and our fourth flavor, you're gonna love this one, Gateway to Heffen, Hefeweizen.
Whoa! Nice. What?
And here's the fun thing about this is I used to brew a lot of Hefeweizen actually at the brew pub at Hops Bistro and Brewery. Also, when I went over to Karl Strauss, I went over to Karl Strauss for a year. I brewed Wind and Sea. I brewed, bigger tanks of Wind and Sea wheat over there. Ooh. Yeah, and so I've got a little background with brewing Hefeweizen, and we decided to reintroduce Hefeweizen. Nobody was really brewing it. It used to be a beer style that was in every brew pub in the country, everywhere. Yeah. You could get a Hefeweizen anywhere and everywhere. Widmer and Pyramid kind of changed that a little bit. They kind of overshot, if you will, and they overcompeted big time on price and lower dropping prices, competing, giving away kegs. I don't know if they really did that, but distributors might do that sort of thing. I've heard stories, exactly.
Allegedly.
Yeah, but pay to play.
Yes.
So I've heard that term before.
But it's always nice. I would say like 1 out of 15 or 20 breweries will have a good selling hef. So it's really good that it's really cool to hear that you had one.
Yeah, and we decided to bring it back. We sell a bunch to it's become a favorite in our pub locally, our tasting room. We sell kegs to our local distributor, even kind of to their chagrin. I think they were like, oh, Hefeweizen's passe. They didn't really want it. And we got them to take it anyway, and we've gotten a following. And Hefeweizen is making it. All right, Paul, let's do this.
Can you include the indie beer show in there somehow?
The indie hef show?
Yeah.
Charles Silva indie beer show collaboration, Hefeweizen.
Yes.
The world coming back. But we could tweak the name a little bit.
Yeah. It might need a slight revision, just a slight revision. But
probably like an acronym or something.
That was our first 4 flavors. The tanks were full, and anyway, I think Hop Maniac, of course, was the first one to empty, and I just got I don't know. I got a decent order from the distributor for kegs and cans of Gateway to Heaven going,
Nice.
which I just brewed. I brewed Tuesday and yesterday. So the timing's perfect.
There's a light at the end of the tunnel.
I don't know. I didn't even have the order. I just brewed it. I just like
you knew it was coming. That's what it was.
I also got to give you props on that name. Gateway to Heaven is pretty good. I think that's so personally, what of your beers, what did you drink the most of in the last year?
Probably Hop Maniac. But I did mix it up. It's interesting how, being a clear beer drinker, I love my, crisp and clean beers. But I have enjoyed our hazy IPAs. Also, we made our first Pilsner
nice.
crisp beer. So that was another subsequent label that we canned, and I drank the shit out of that.
Yes.
But the problem with that is it ran out, so I can't say I drank it all year long or something like that. But we're working on a new Pilsner, actually, different yeast strain, kind of different approach. So I'm not really telling all about that yet because I'm still working through a couple of details. But I actually have a batch in right now.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Okay.
First milkshake Pilsner ever.
I was
That's already been done. Sorry.
Next month is all Pilsner and Hef, right? That's what I heard, which is freaking great.
If it all came to an end, this year, and all I had left to drink was Pilsner, I'd be all right.
Yeah,
I'm a Pilsner lover. Yeah.
This is pretty funny. Hef is in, Hazy's out, but then he follows it up with, wait, Hef's hazy. The original hazy beer was Hef. So El Jefe, Mexican inspired. Our fans have great ideas. So but
the original haze, I thought about calling it that. I'm not sure if somebody had already used it. But that was actually one of my names on the list before we decided on Gateway to Heaven. The original has.
I'm glad it worked out. That's a great name.
No truth to the pastry stout Hef rumor. That is not true. That is definitely fake news.
We're gonna mix Silva Stout with Hefeweizen.
Yes. For the record, we are not. But yes, that's awesome.
Mixed 4-pack. 2 stouts, 2 Hefs. There you go.
I like that.
Beer of the Rescue once had a really, it sounds like an abomination, but it was really great. It was a peanut butter Hef. You had like the banana and the peanut butter, and it was freaking delicious. We called it Lupus has left the building.
Because it's Elvis's favorite sandwich. Yeah,
exactly. I mean, that beer was really good. I mean, it really played off that banana clove thing, but
genius.
Wow.
Who made that for you?
Fallbrook Brewing. Rest in peace.
Thumbs up to John. Half and Hef. That's pretty good. Yeah. So it's all going to change on Saturday. At least possibly you get to make a choice. But what services are you currently offering the public?
Oh, yeah. So we're sticking with the curbside thing. We are normally closed Mondays and Tuesdays, by the way, just because we are such a small staff, even before all this. Okay, so Mondays and Tuesdays was kind of my office day, domestic day to breathe without employees. And that continues. Wednesday and Thursday are curbside. Friday, Saturday, Sunday are noon to 5. Alley Beer Garden. And we have been doing 25% inside, although I saw there were some new guidelines that just came out today. Or they're going to affect this weekend. So we might have to adjust a little bit. But the Alley Beer Garden is still going to be open for us. We're in the red tier now.
Excellent.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so what the new regulations that I kind of mentioned and Chuck is kind of talking about is starting on Saturday for breweries that do not have an integral food element, that breweries that have adapted and pivoted and brought food in, they are letting them decide if they want to get rid of the food requirement or not. So if the brewery that you go to starting on Saturday decides that they do not need to require you to buy a meal to have a beer, you can now drink at that brewery for up to 90 minutes. They have a time limit.
A time limit.
You got a time limit. You have to stay seated, and last call's 8 p.m. If the brewery decides to keep the food requirement, the meal requirement, which I think it sounds like from my beer group and my friends that most breweries are going to keep the food requirement because it allows you to not have the time limitation on the table, and it allows people to stay open to last calls at 10 p.m.
Because it makes you not get drunk and make bad decisions at all.
At all. It's magic. It's magic.
Right.
So, you know,
it's only a bad decision on what you eat.
Yeah, so these rules have been. Some people have found these rules very confusing and stuff. Mm-hmm. The rules about the food requirement, what that heart of that rule was about was that making your brewery into a restaurant. Therefore, it's essential because you're feeding people, and you happen to also have beer. That's how they wanted it to be. That's not reality. We all know breweries called a caterer to serve food so that they could sell their beer to you after you had your taco or whatever it was, or hot dog or whatever the meal was. So,
and they also suggested like reservations too.
So if you don't have a field, right? If you don't have a food requirement, then you also are required to have reservations. And I believe that is about contract tracing and shit like that, which is it's very complicated. But where I find a big hole in this new law is distilleries can be open and serve you a drink, but a bar can't. So bars that don't have a food provider are still closed until we get into the orange tier. I don't understand why a distillery making you a drink is different than a bar making a drink, but I will say this. Shout out to the CCBA, the California Craft Beer Association. Yeah. That is who made this happen. What the argument that they brought to the state that made this all happen was that breweries, distilleries, and wineries should be treated the same.
And so the lawsuit brought forth, thank you, Virginia, and the folks that joined.
Yeah. Several people from San Diego, several other breweries joined CCBA, including in Virginia Morrison here, representative of Second Chance owner and legal representation of that brewery.
Hey,
all of this is what it took to get it done. And again, what we have been finding is if you can bring a logical argument based on science to the state, sometimes they'll hear you. If you have a large enough voice. The good news here is that the CCBA has set a footprint for other associations that represent independent bars and things. I think are going to be able to leverage this precedent to help them as well. While I am definitely been hardline about everyone following the fucking guidelines our state puts in front of them to maintain a legal business, I have never agreed with the meal requirement. That's a weird law. It's a weird requirement. It's a weird thought process. But I'm just a rule follower. And so I've supported breweries that have kept people safe and followed the guidelines all at the same time. And I will continue to do that long after my time here ends. So I'm glad to hear, Chuck, that you are keeping your patrons and yourself and your worker or workers, depending, safe. It's very important, and so thank you for taking it seriously. We do appreciate that.
You're welcome. We embraced everything from a safety standpoint. We don't want COVID, and we don't want to be spreading it. So we've taken that all very seriously. We actually did embrace the meal. And we had 2 different purveyors for food. We've cut back to 1, and I think we might just phase it out, or maybe just have it as an option, and just order less, because we do find that people, whereas we had never had food, that if you're traveling in particular, or if you're just, want to have a little getaway experience, it elevates the experience to have, an accompaniment for some people. Not everybody wants. Some people just want, hey, I want a pint, one and done, and it doesn't. So the rules didn't allow for that sort of thing.
Yeah, there's also been a lot of studies that show that if someone eats a meal at your brewery, they're much more inclined to have a second beer. And, so like you said, there's a lot to consider here. It's a heavy choice that weighs on the crown, the owners of every brewery. Judith has a great comment, is that, if you keep the food requirement there, these caterers and these food trucks and a lot of upstart businesses happened that helped keep the breweries open during the pandemic. Mm-hmm. Keeping a food requirement for a little longer than necessary kind of gives back to those entities that allowed you to stay open. And your clientele, maybe they fell in love with that taco truck you have at your brewery, and they're counting on them being there when they come this weekend. Who knows? I know it's super complicated all around. Go ahead,
Brad. Quick question. I think there's very few places that could probably where there's an opportunity for someone to speak to this. But with the CCBA, the crux of the whole thing was that breweries were being treated different than wineries, which they were in a big way. But you have so many wineries up there, and you have small breweries and then Firestone Walker. So, and Barrel House is large enough, but not a food component, I don't believe, on their premises. So, did you see any of that in kind of like on the ground there, where you're like, how come all these wineries get to do whatever they want, and you're like, we're sitting here and we have to have food all of a sudden? It doesn't seem fair. Was there any kind of an uproar amongst the brewers in Paso Robles, or was it just like, whatever?
Yeah, there was a bit. It was super confusing to people. To be, I was just at a winery, they sent me to your place. They recommended you. And I'm like, but you have to buy the food. And so it was very confusing. And then you had, I just came from Barrel House and they sold me a cup of noodles for 25 cents and I donated it back. And sorry to throw them under the bus, but they found a solution that worked for them, and then they rolled with it. But they still had, and I'll give them credit. So that was kind of to get through their sort of bona fide meal. But they still had food truck available. They just didn't require you to use the food truck. They required you to do the soup, and but then they still provided, the great, food truck service. We unfortunately don't have quite a venue. I really didn't finish talking about our venue. We normally don't have outside service, but we got the parking lot as a temporary. So we're basically just a 500 square foot tasting room and that wraps around. Excuse me, burping my vivace.
It happens.
So that L shape that wraps around the brewery. So you really can't get any closer to the brew process, I don't think, in any other brewery than ours. You're literally
you're in the brewery.
You're in the brewery. It's super.
You'll have to move at some point.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
Yeah. There's a hose coming if you don't pay attention.
Yeah, we did acquire the space next door, so we doubled in our size. This year, the timing, wasn't awesome with the cash flow because I didn't have the cash to do the infrastructure work that I wanted to do. So we're just kind of using it, of course, for the storage, kegs, malt, now canned supplies. I had to put in shelving just to support all the, labels, boxes, quad pack holders, cans,
it takes
packaging
a lot of
materials. I actually had to put in shelving for that. And so that's inventory plus the cost of the shelving, but it was all, part of the plan anyway. So it just happened in like I don't know, in the right way. I don't know, in the right time. I'm not really sure that's all true, but it was all going to come. I just wanted to redo the floors and make it a little prettier. So.
Well, and we've heard several breweries that they had this weird kismet or whatever. They were already on the track to pivoting to more packaging and less keg. They were already moving towards more self-distribution and less restaurant servicing, things like that. But then we also have a lot of friends that, didn't survive. So I think everyone that's been connected to beer for, so let's say, 4 or 5 years and kind of has a large group of friends in beer that are workers at breweries, all know people that at least lost their job, but we also all know breweries that have, unfortunately not survived, or beer bars. So, like 30th Street will never be the same here in San Diego. I don't think so many victims just on one street. It's tough, and I'm so glad to hear that you were able to get through it and that you can see the light at the end of the tunnel. Like we're all very excited for 3 or 4 months from now when there's a large chunk of our population that's vaccinated, and some of the separation requirements are going to start falling off, and maybe we could be at a Padre game or something crazy, some kind of social activity. Maybe a fucking concert could happen this summer. I don't know, man. Like
I've got tickets to a bunch of them. I can't wait for them to actually happen.
Me too.
Yes, right. Like you got a buildup of tickets from past years. That's great. So let's get into number 2. Let's go backwards. Abel, the second, your second ranking beer that you would miss should you leave San Diego. That's a weird way to say it. But anyways, there you go. You know what we're doing. Number 2.
My number 2 will go to Epic. It's the Fest beer. Every time that beer is out, I jump to go get it. When they were doing the whole canning, and I had to go all the way up to Vista or wherever they're at up north to go get it. I put an order in. I drove all the way out there. I picked it up, and then this was, COVID time. So then I sat in the parking lot, but, with just drinking in the parking lot because that's all I could have done.
You're a rebel like that. Yeah.
I mean, it's no alley entrance like Chuck Silva's, really, but, it was a parking lot beer. So yes, the Epic's Fest beer is my number 2 beer that I cannot live without if I move out of San Diego.
A good beer to choose, man. And Epic just raked it up in the San Diego Beer News Awards. So congrats to them. Speaking of San Diego Beer News, Brandon, number 2, sir.
So I have a tie.
No way.
But it's the same brewery. The same brewery for both because they're both seasonals. So one of them is Fest beer from Epic. Yeah, that beer is just so good. It's good for any occasion that you drink it to. Every day,
or any parking lot.
It's Oktoberfest or something fun like that, or exactly, or an alley, or waiting for more beer to be delivered to your car, stuff like that. But I also really love a beer that they get, I think, no acclaim for, but it's a fantastic beer. It's called Rival. It's their alt beer.
Ooh,
I think that beer is actually my favorite beer they make, even over Fest beer. It's that good. So next time you're there and it's on tap, give it a shot. But those 2 beers would definitely not make it to anywhere I'm going. So I would miss them.
Yeah.
That's and good choices, man. Estella.
I'm going AleSmith. All the variations of Speedway Stout. It's not a tie. It's all of them. Okay, guys.
She's like, I got a tie for 12.
You can't go to the Grand Prix anymore, so that makes perfect sense.
Exactly. So I can't try the different variations if I'm anywhere else. They usually just have them here. So I'm just going to go with that because I don't know what they're going to come up with next year, but I need to have it.
Right.
Just like I needed to have all of them this year. So
Hot Pocket Speedway Stout.
Yep, I'm doing it. Except if it has chile, valió. No, valió. But yeah, all the variations, todas las Speedway Stouts aquí. That's all.
That's a really good choice, and it encompasses mine. I went with a specific Speedway Stout variant, Jamaica Blue Mountain Speedway. To me, as far as the non-barrel aged, my favorite. A lot of people pick Vietnamese, which is a great choice too. Which is my favorite.
Canned now. That's
is
canned.
my favorite. Yeah, it's canned, and that's my favorite barrel aged Speedway. But yes, lots of money. Lots of money. And
like where am I going to spend all my money at if I don't have Jamaica Blue Mountain Speedway on?
I know.
That beer is fantastic.
But I think I have 2 bottles left from 17. I don't know why that particular year hit me right, but so Jamaican Blue Mountain Speedway Stout, the number 2 beer I would miss heavily should I leave San Diego. So
going away party for your friends on the podcast.
Yes, exactly.
I'm kidding. Keep your Jamaican for your retirement.
First off, you won't believe the fucking beers I will bring to the first bottle share, because I have been able to clean out a lot of my closet, and I am down to fucking beers that I am dying to share with people when we can do that. So maybe that's July, maybe it's August, whenever it is, when we're all vaccinated.
Our beach party.
A beach party in Del Mar, for sure. But we've been talking about it all night. Let's not talk about it anymore. Let's be about it. Get those.
Hey, I got a couple of beers.
Oh, let's hear it. Let's hear it.
Great.
Right.
Let's listen to Chuck. Beers that you missed from San Diego, sir.
Yeah.
Nice.
And it's a tie.
All right. You're playing a spelling game.
We call that the Estela. We call it
it's kind of a toss-up between Cable Car and Duck Duck
Goose.
Not that I could get them when I was in San Diego.
Right? But good choices,
Tommy.
man. Good choices.
Love you, brother. But,
yes.
Give me some of that beer.
Great person to shout out. And let me check my closet. Nope, no Cable Car. Sorry.
Forget about it then.
Yeah, right? Yeah. For me, I have, and I do have several DDGs, but there's only one Lost Abbey beer that I never got to try that is considered a super whale or whatever. That's Yellow Bus. And there have been people that even say that seem to think that beer was a myth, like it never happened.
It never happened.
I've seen pictures of a bottle. I know it happened. I know we've talked to Tommy about it.
It tastes good.
Yeah, thank you. You've had it. Fuck you, Brandon.
It does taste good.
But
fuck you, Brandon. I never tried it at all.
Yeah, Brandon. You're a jerk, Brandon.
At least it was true. Like, it's weird. Like, you get people that turned 21 after 2000, and they're like, yeah, that beer didn't exist. Like, what? No, it was real beer. So, anyways, speaking of real beers, and we're now opening Silva Stout, your namesake beer. The only beer that had your name at the aforementioned brewery that we didn't mention. But something that you are very
it's kind of like saying Beetlejuice, right?
Right, exactly. Don't say it too many times or it'll show up. But you've been known for your barrel aging prowess, let's say. So let's first off, let's start with, we're drinking Silva Stout. It's going to come out a little later this year for people up in your area. What did you do this time? What was your process this year on this one?
Okay. First of all, I've been dying to share the information because it's almost ready. Well, obviously you have some, so it's been made. Here's my can. Thank you.
Excellent.
Yeah, you might need a.
It smells like it's almost ready.
Or I could just pour it and then send you back with the rest. So
it's huge chocolate this year.
Yes.
It's delicious this year.
Big wood, big chocolate. Big chocolate wood.
Paul can officially hate us now. Paul can officially really hate us now because this is delicious.
Hey, I have the exact same situation going on as Chuck does with MJ with my wife. It's like, you know what? After that show, I want that Silva Stout. It's like, okay.
Oh yeah, she was like, give me that.
Hi, MJ.
Exactly.
Some of that.
We're like, hi, MJ.
She got her can and she looked.
My wife did the same thing. I poured my glass. I put the can over there. Gone.
Well,
Yeah, I just
first
saw
of
the
all,
dog staring at me. So
salute to 2021. This is Silva Stout 2021.
Salud.
Aged 18 months in Four Roses bourbon barrels.
Ooh.
take that, Paul.
I mean, it's
Almost made me spill beer, bro. Come on.
so
That weighs in at a smooth 12.6%.
it
is a smooth 12.6%.
Yeah.
Hey,
I was gonna say 12.7, but 12.6.
ABV
Yeah, I got you.
smuggler.
Well, say. Yeah, you guys should have thought about it some more.
Oh my God.
Thank
you, Paul.
Bastards. Yes.
What's with the negative waves, Paul? Come on now, bro.
Glorious bastards, I think, is what you meant.
Right. Exactly.
Oh, this is so good.
So
We get a really soft. We get a soft character from the Four Roses bourbon, and it's really important to age it for 18 months to get the full depth of it. But one of the things about Silva Stout that has always been true, and from the very first one to now, is we always blend back a little bit of fresh Imperial Stout. Our Imperial Stout now is called Ouroboros. Ouroboros is life through death, or the spirit of renewal. It's that Greek symbol of the snake eating its tail or the dragon eating its tail. So we named our Imperial Stout as it's the rebirth of Silva Stout. If that makes sense to anybody.
it makes a lot of sense.
It does. We're kind of enjoying the beer.
We should be holding it like this. Like we should be holding it like a chalice.
Kind of need to do that to warm it up. Mine's a little too cold.
Yeah, I took mine out before we started the show, and
Why
just a
is
touch too cold.
Yeah, no,
mine's a little bit too cold. So
No, it's nice to have like a milk chocolatey flavor on such a rich beer, because a lot of times you get like a dark chocolate expression, but something about it's not sweet per se. It's just got this really nice like soft chocolate to go with the soft bourbon, but everything's there, but nothing's really competing. There's even a nice woodiness that's there, but they're all there in concert, and nothing is taking the lead, which I really like.
Yeah.
Well, we had 4 barrels. So that gives you
like 1, 2, 3, 4.
4 barrels. 4 bourbon barrels filled. So that's 55 gallons original, probably about 45 gallons coming out, or 40, 42 after a year and a half. It reduces quite a bit. And each barrel had different tasting notes. One was real toffee. One was way caramel. One was chocolatey. There were different fruity notes. There was at least one that had some cool cherry note, which rolling the clock way back to the very first, versions, the Heaven Hill barrels that were the 10-year Heaven Hill barrels, which are completely unavailable now.
Yeah.
I don't know if they've just been all bought up by, Bourbon County Stout or they're just not producing that product anymore. I think they just all got bought up. Those barrels never come on the market anymore. But those were the most amazing barrels. They would give you a chocolate covered cherry bourbon ball flavor.
Ooh.
That's how I used to describe Silva Stout. And so to get the cherry note is really fun for me. And you don't get that in all the barrels. So when you have a cherry barrel, you're like, oh, okay, that's the one. And we need to, embrace that and then blend the others to it. But in this case, it was the blend of the 4 barrels was better than any single barrel.
Wow.
So it added complexity. Like if we had one barrel that was just like, and we're just going to throw it in, we would just kick it out. We would just be like, we'll use that for something else. And,
I'm sorry, I'm laughing, Paul.
Yes, exactly. He's now a Heaven Hill bourbon barrel hoarder.
Oh, boy.
He's not going to
Paul's
share
a
it.
dick.
He's not going to share it. Yes, right. Exactly. He's going to share your barrels with you. But
Next week on Standing Up Beer News, Paul Segura announces he's going to work for AB InBev.
All right. Well, that makes sense.
yes, exactly.
All right. Well, so more, yeah.
I think one of the strengths of this beer always has been your blending skills. You have always had good blending skills, and like you said, the uniqueness of adding some fresh beer in to temper the bourbon quality.
So it's not hot.
Yeah.
So after all that time in the barrel, it can be hot and boozy, and actually you kind of want those blenders that are hot, but not all of them. And then that kind of adds complexity. And then in this case, we came back with 10.5%. So last time we did 4 roses. Keep that beer in your mouth.
No,
it's come out your nose.
Do you see Paul with?
Paul's on a good one tonight.
Paul said Segura Stout.
I don't know what barrel-aged Imperial Stout Paul Segura is drinking tonight, but he's on one. I want some.
I did not name that beer. I'll tell you that. I did not name that beer.
I'm glad he got that, man. I think it's red.
You know what the original name for Silva Stout was? It was Bourbon Barrel Double Stout.
Just
bourbon barrel double stout, because the base beer was double stout. That was the name of the beer. And then it became bourbon barrel double stout. And then when we finally went to package it, to bottle it, the company had been working on a label, and they surprised me with that. And I didn't really know. I was like, hey, I need the labels. We're getting ready to start bottling. And they're like, oh, it'll be here tomorrow, I'm like, all right. We're starting tomorrow. So anyway, it was just a very, very dear surprise. There were some really great things that happened where I used to work. And
of course. And they were at least cool enough to let you take the name with you.
Right. And that actually, actually the night I resigned, I got an email, and it went to me and actually Candace, the attorney, and said, hey, please transfer the trademark to Silva Brewing.
That's really cool.
That's awesome.
At least they gave you one legacy thing on and kind of recognize what you did for them.
Yeah. I was never lacking any recognition in that company, by the way.
That's good.
Yeah. So not to pull the curtain back too far, but back when Chuck was making his decision, he was nice enough to let me write about it when it was happening, and we talked about it before the article went out, before he'd resigned, and before all of that. And as with anybody who's resigning from any kind of job, there's this nervousness, but also there was this anticipation for the future. And we were engineering things behind the scenes. It's like how to respectfully roll this out with him going in and saying that he was resigning. And we were a little nervous about the whole thing, but it was really
and to be thankful too on the way out.
Oh, absolutely. But the coolest thing for me was right before I'm waiting for his okay to publish this article, and he says, they were really nice about it. They were really cool. Everything's fine. Go ahead and publish the article. Is this text that I got? And that was pretty great. And it, like you could tell the stress was off of him, and he'd go off and embark on his next chapter. And then these other things come about with like the Silva Stout. So that there were these good components to this story. And I like that you're able to tell them. And anyways, I always remember that moment because there was all these nerves, and then it was like, what? They were real good about it. Yeah. Oh, okay, great. Well, that's fantastic. And kind of surprising, but fantastic.
Yeah. And I can say again, the help was much appreciated. The right wording was super important to me. and you helped me with that.
Well, yeah,
because you got the clear sentiment, but to have the right eloquence in that moment was important.
Well, it meant so much to you.
So no, I will say this. This beer kind of scares me because it's so smooth and just so delicious, and I just want to keep drinking it. And then I remember the ABV on this.
But you're already home, so at least there's
that. I know. I'm gonna just walk to my room, but still, I mean, like this is.
Well, you don't have any more of it, so you'll be fine.
Yeah, you only got the one.
I'm gonna finish this one for sure. I was thinking I should go drop it off at somebody's house. This can't just stay here, but no, I'm gonna finish
it. That's a very kind thought too to share that. That's
put up Bill Snyder's comment, please.
Yes, exactly.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly. Paul says Reaper Ales had decent stout too. Is that another past standing brewery you worked at?
Well, when I came on to Green Flash in 2004, they had already acquired Reaper Ales. So
that's right. They absorbed Reaper from Vista. Yes, I remember.
Well, it was a contract relationship, and so I helped redefine some of their beers and won some regional awards, and then we released West Coast IPA. And we had to give them notice that we could no longer produce their beers because the production capacity.
You maxed out production at the Vista facility like overnight, right?
Yeah, literally March 1st, 2005 was the release of West Coast IPA. Became the #1 selling beer at Green Flash in August. And then by the end of the year, we actually had to give Reaper notice. We had to discontinue their line.
Wow.
Crazy, huh?
Yeah. But
I mean, things are moving fast. Things are moving fast then.
Yeah. The only type of problems you want is, I'm sorry, I'm too busy with my own shit. I can't also brew your work. Yeah. So, and then I don't know why they didn't pursue another.
Jay got one of them.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, that was a really great beer. Oh my god.
Yeah.
And actually, Liars Club, they probably had two. They absolutely had Deathly Pale Ale at Liars Club, and they probably had 2 or 3 Redemption Red. That was Redemption Red was way before I made
Hophead Red.
Hophead Red. Yeah,
which I think in an earlier comment, Mr. Segura wants to see come back. So if you're listening to your previous mentor, now equal, there you go. So before we move into our march out of here, we have to ask you, Chuck, you're 5 years into Silva Brewing. Is the reality of having your own brewery living up to that initial excitement that led to it even happening? And how is your life overall feeling in Paso Robles?
It's amazing. Life is quieter. So that was part of the decision for leaving San Diego. We could have opened our brewery in San Diego. But we really, both of us, MJ and I, we were actually leaving behind, I think, long-term relationships. We both were married for a long time and both had divorces, and then we met each other. But we were looking for a change of atmosphere, get away from the traffic that became so cumbersome in San Diego. The commute is just horrible. And we just felt like we would maybe even be sort of lost in the saturation of the breweries to some degree. Although I do miss the vibe, I miss the food, I miss the people and the love of beer there. It's really quite different here. It's a lot more casual. It's not as focused. But that's what you get in the city. Rush actually put that. The focus is sharp in the city. And the Rush song. So anyway, I feel like Paso Robles is super chill. It's laid back. It used to be an old cow town. Now it's wine country. You know, offerings are getting better. There just isn't as much. There isn't as broad offerings, of course, in a town of 2 million when we're a town of 30,000.
Yeah.
Geography is a little spread out, but that gives us all room. It gives us all the room to breathe. It's prettier here. The landscape is prettier here. You know, I could go to the ocean. It is a little bit of a drive for me to go to the ocean. It's 40, 45 minutes.
That's not so bad, though.
No.
It's not so bad. And, you know, it's not going to be crowded either.
Yeah, we couldn't imagine the expansive beaches that you could just walk on here compared to ours. Like, you trip over someone every 4 feet here.
So it's a quality of life decision. I'll let you go, Brendan, in a second. But you know, I do miss, like, you know, an intense, you know, draw, you know, for, you know, particular beers that I might be making. It's a much more casual thing here. And, you know, Silva Stout, we're going to release that. We're actually probably going to start bottling it Sunday. And we're going to release some probably St. Patty's Day.
Road trip, guys. Road trip.
So we will offer some for online sales. So we'll do 6 bottle boxes, and we'll offer that. So you'll see that on the, you know, through our website and our Square store. So you'll see that come online.
Excellent.
And then hopefully I'll send some out to, you know, a few bottle shops down in San Diego too, because that's the right thing to do. Right. I think we can probably get them to take a beverage and a Silva Stout together, and I actually have a nice box that puts two cases together, and I can send that down GLS.
Don't sleep on Vivace.
No,
don't sleep on
you didn't say it right. Yep.
But don't sleep on the fucking beer. You know, I'm drinking it again to help kind of step back from the Silva Stout. But
no, I'm gonna finish this.
That's great. I shared mine, and it's gone. I don't have that option right now, but it's great.
I just wanted to ask Chuck.
Yeah.
So you're in Paso Robles. You've been there a while now. I won't ask you your top 3 because I know that just makes it really difficult. But what is one or some of the wineries you really enjoy? Because if we let you go without finding out where Chuck Silva likes to drink wine, it's a bit of a wasted show.
Travesty.
Hang on. All right, I'm going to take that. I'm going to put a pause on it just for a second and say the beer scene, since we've come here, and not just because we've come here, but since we've come here, is actually risen. So there's been a rising tide. Ryan Fields has come up and opened Wild Fields with Jackie. Central Coast Brewing took a big, you know, surge forward with Brendan Goff. He since left and started Liquid Gravity. And then Max opened There Does Not Exist. Also coming out of, you know, Firestone. So there's some guys with some good knowledge and opening some, you know, really quality, you know, operations. Beers available up here are really on the rise. So there's some good stuff, and there's still some really, you know, small nano breweries that were, you know, some are here and some are new, but so I think there's some quality beer to be had here on the Central Coast. So now back to the wine side. Yes, I love wine, and that was actually part of why I wanted to be here. So that's again, you know, part of the answer to, you know, Brian's question is, you know, why Paso, why the Central Coast? I wanted to be in wine country. So it wasn't just like, oh, we're going to leave and go find a place. It had to be in wine country. It could have been in Oregon. It could have been in Northern California. It could have been in Napa, Sonoma. It could have been El Dorado. A little too close to my brother, maybe. You know, love your brother, but, you know.
Within an hour is great for family.
He doesn't even watch. He's
no. But you know, there's hundreds of wineries here. You know, love me some McPricemeyer, But you have to know I've been working with Denner Vineyards quite a bit. And so I made 2 wine country ales that are co-ferments, that are kettle sour co-ferments. So the pink stuff, Brandon knows. And you probably haven't had the Brut. BRUEWT. You got to get your head around that for a second.
Oh,
the Brut. It's fun. It's fun, right? You gotta admit.
Indeed.
yeah.
And not the least of the 2, actually. They're both phenomenal. The Brut, or the sparkling rosé beer is the pink stuff, and that was made with Grenache originally, and then we brought Carignan into the picture. This year it's a 50-50 blend of Grenache and Carignan. That's about 30% of the juice. So we make a kettle sour. We do a French saison ferment in stainless steel, move it to wine barrels, and then bring in the juice from harvest, first press juice, high quality first press juice from Denner Vineyards. Look up Denner Vineyards if you're not familiar. Denner Vineyards is a high quality, highly rated, and top notch West Side Paso producer. He has actually helped me make my step into winemaking too. So we applied for a Type 2 wine license this year.
Ooh.
What?
Silva wine? Are we going Silva wine now too?
Yeah. So we have we've been working on making some wine. I sourced some Roussan grapes. I sourced Grenache and Syrah this year.
You're major.
So we're going, and I have my TTB permit, and I still don't have my final on ABC, but it's right there. So we get that final ABC, and then we can actually have a wine offering in wine country along with our beers. And so just before we sign off, some of the things that we wanted to do coming up to wine country is we wanted to have some really just fresh, clean beers, but I still wanted to have a boutique aspect of what we were doing. So thus the Belgian rustic style, maybe some barrel-aged stout, maybe a Belgian IPA, Chuck-a-muck, or MJ's spicy ginger saison. We get to name beers after ourselves when you own your own brewery.
Yeah, exactly.
Nice. Yeah, you can do that.
So we are having fun with it. The pink stuff and actually, especially the Brut. I had a vision for the Brut for many years, and I thought I might even do that for an anniversary beer at the company I worked for before, and we just never really kind of got there. I never really figured it out completely. And then when we got here in wine country, then it became obvious that, but it's made with Picpoul Blanc, which has a great Meyer lemon quality. But it lends itself well to all the other components, like, because it has a beer component, it has the, kind of the wood component because, it's aged or co-fermented in the barrel. And then we do actually filter them so that we can clean the saison yeast out, and then I dosage champagne yeast for bottle conditioning. So those are really fun, really fun. So
very interesting. I gotta get there when it's allowed for us to be visiting people for real, when we can high five and hug again.
Yeah. So some other notes of what we've been doing. So we got back to making red. I love a hoppy red ale, and damn it, I won some serious awards for that shit, and I helped actually define a hoppy red category. American red was never a hoppy beer style, and I actually helped write that for the GABF, along with some other brewers. We all contributed to the language. But I was happy to be able to contribute that, of course.
Yeah.
Colby wants to make some
I was
raspberry.
gonna say, can you put Colby's comment back up?
First off,
that sounds amazing.
But what is the damn raspberry beer, and why should we want it?
Okay, wait a minute. So before I got to finish my thought. So Rhinestone Red, we made Rhinestone Red, and that's now a regular rotator. We just can't be a regular because we have so many beers and so few tanks.
Okay.
So he's talking about Red Moon Raspberry that I brewed at Hops Bistro and Brewery.
Wow, all the way back to hops.
And it was refreshing. It had a nice tartness without being a sour beer. It had, beautiful raspberry flavor, but raspberry isn't overly sweet. So you just introduce it to a secondary. You get a lot of color. Anyway, so I got that pretty dialed in when I was at Hops, and
so you're gonna make it again.
So Colby wants me to make it again, or he wants to make it.
Tammy says you have to make it.
That would be fine. So I've only done 2 collaboration brews, not because I don't want to do more, but just because it's super challenging with only 4 fermenters and trying to work with distributor relationships and trying to grow our brand and stuff like that. So I think it's been kind of tough with only 4 fermenters. But the first collaboration I did is so near and dear to my heart, and it was with Colby, and it's called the S Shot. The S Shot is a fun disc golf shot, and where you throw your disc golf, you throw your disc. And I love disc golf. What am I gonna say? But it also is kind of the shape of a smoke plume. And we did a smoked beer together, which Colby has done some really nice smoked beers. Yeah. And I couldn't think of another beer that I wanted to do with him at the time any more than a smoked beer. So we actually did a smoked porter together. And it's interesting when, things are kind of falling off. Paul's got my Red Moon. So, Stone phased out their smoke porter. It's a shame, it's a shame, even if that's a 1%er beer in your portfolio, it's such a fabulous thing that why wouldn't you just bring it back, on a holiday, like I don't know. Why kill it? Why get rid of some likely self-righteous the best beer you've ever made? I don't know. So anyway, we made this smoked porter, that shot, and it's this. But I've only done one other collaboration beer since then, and that was with another San Diego fellows, Tom Nickel and Tyson Blake, because we brewed for the anniversary. We did Kvik Start My Heart. Nice. Because the Kvik yeast and and all the synergy behind Kvik. So we did a Kvik IPA together, and the guys came up and we sipped a lot of beers and sent them away with a lot of beers.
That is awesome, man. And before we start marching out of here, Bill, thank you, for being a long-term supporter of the show, but thank you for your kind words. And yes, RIP to Tyson's brother Sam. Our love and support go out to the entire Blake family.
Love you.
We know it's incredibly difficult to lose a family member, especially one that was so integral to your happiness as Sam. Sam, I didn't ever meet him personally. I'm only speaking from the posts I have read this week. Sounds like he was an amazing guy. So my love to your family, man. With that happy note, it's time for the San Diego beer news, and this is where we turn the show over to Brandon to tell us everything that we're not paying attention to in San Diego beer. You get all of this at SanDiegoBeer.news. Brandon, what the fuck is going on this week, sir?
Oh, stuff is going on. My third item will be about Chuck, so Chuck, be prepared.
My.
Ooh.
My friend, he doesn't even know. It's great. But first item is okay. So Booze Brothers Brewing in Vista, they have done a lot from Vista, and they have a great following there. They've expanded to Oceanside. They've opened an events venue there, not far from their Vista headquarters. But they're also going to be moving into Fallbrook. And the funny thing about Booze Brothers is actually two brothers, Donnie and Dave Firth. And they have a sister who's also entrepreneurial, and she's opening up a business. She has a business already, but they're renovating a barn in Fallbrook and making it into a retail space. It's going to have coffee and food and beer. So they're going to have a 4,000 square foot beer garden at this place called the Mill. That's what they're turning this barn into, is the Mill, and it's going to be really cool. And unfortunately, Fallbrook, despite the fact that way back when it had Bolt Brewery, and then it eventually had Fallbrook Brewing, which was around for 5 years, and then Fallbrook Brewing Company went out. Prohibition came in, took that over. They went out during COVID, so it's not been the greatest environment for breweries. But at the same time, Booze Brothers is in a pretty unique position in that they have an established brand. This is a satellite venue, and they're backing their family, so it should be pretty cool. They might even get into coffee roasting, but.
Nice.
Pretty exciting little thing going on there. So that's something to keep your eyes on. It's supposed to open sometime in April. So not too far ahead. And then in the nearer future, My Yard Live, a brew pub that we all had a really fun time at having our.
So good.
It was basically like.
It was The Price is Right.
It was like Jeopardy.
Right
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was like we had our own little game show there way back then. Like it feels like 25 years ago, but it was really fun. So My Yard Live is a really great venue that took over a old hometown buffet and made it to a family-friendly place where you walk in and you've got a bar, but you've got picnic tables. You've got a lot of arcade games and really, really great like interactive games, skee ball, stuff like that. Not skee ball. I'm thinking of air hockey. Yes. Anyways, but if you go out one door, you're into this really fun backyard outdoor thing for kids. You walk out another door, you're in a more of an adult type of like front yard or My Yard Live. Yeah. And there's plenty of games, things to do, a lot of entertainment. There's a stage indoors, stage outdoors. That didn't really work too good during COVID. So in December, right before Newsom did the second stay-at-home order, they decided, you know what? The best thing we can do is close so that we can hopefully survive this whole thing, wait this whole thing out. Well, anyways, they're going to be opening next Thursday, March 18th, and holding a 4-day reopening celebration. It's going to have a lot of live entertainment, and they've switched their entire model so that now it's not a bunch of picnic tables indoors and all that kind of thing. They're going to have tables in the outdoor areas for now where it's full table service. So you don't go up like it used to be and order all your food, take a little sign that has like, I'm table number 20 and wait around for someone to bring it to you. Now you get like full on service until they can get to a place where it's more like, the good old days basically. Yeah. But it's good to see somebody who, quite frankly, when they closed in December, thought they might not reopen, be able to reopen. They have a bunch of fresh beer from Shaggy over there, the head brewer, who is making, I have to say, some really fine beer. Mm-hmm. I think his IPAs are fantastic, but there's a lot of other styles as well. So that's coming back, and that's really fun. That's item number 2. Item number 3, all I want to talk about is, remember Chuck Var?
What?
Yes, I do.
I'm sure he does. Yes.
Tell people about Chuck Var. It was so fun. And I think it's got to be like 9 or 10 years ago, right?
At least.
No, more.
I was going to say no more than that.
Like 2010, 2011?
No, it was before 2010. It was before 2009. So we were doing a fizzy yellow beer. Yeah. That's what we
historical value. Value.
And then there was another so that was a surprise label that showed up, and I had no idea that was coming. And it was,
I didn't know that.
It was, I don't know if you guys really got the reference, but it was Chuck Var instead of Czech bar.
Czech bar.
Exactly. Awesome,
which was actually another, which is so funny because it was Czech bar was a kind of a rebranding after a legal suit of the Bood bar.
Yes, the original Budweiser.
So, and I'm super inspired and love it, and I actually got to have original Bood bar. I got to have, Anyway, I was just super inspired by that beer, and so I made Fizzy Yellow beer, but which was like a little poke at great cook, but why wouldn't you?
You gotta take your shots at Greg when you get the opportunity.
Yeah.
I really think.
But I meant it, in a cooperative spirit too. So he had to process that one a little bit. But anyway, so the Chuck bar the label was such a rip-off label. Oh my God, we could have got probably lawsuit over that one, but it looked.
That was back in the day. Don't worry about that now.
No, I'm
fine.
not worried.
It's fine.
We should bring it back just for fun. But it was like it looked like scripted, like Czech bar, but it was Chuck bar, and it was a beer of the Czech Republic.
Lovely.
There was some other fun notes on it, but it had all the proper red and gold and green colored label. It was So that's what he's talking about. So that was fun.
Awesome. Glad to take you down a little memory, man.
Yeah.
Oh,
So what else am I missing? I feel like I've left you guys in the dark.
You have not, and I think you've done really good. But really, the heart of Bill's message is he can't wait to hang out, and spend some quality time with you and MJ again once it's all possible down here or up there. I'm sure.
What are you looking at?
This is birthday cake.
It's a birthday squeaky toy.
Yeah,
a birthday squeaky toy.
I got a labradoodle here. It's like, hey, dude, give me some.
Your job is to throw this toy for
can
me.
we see dog, please?
That's right.
Oh my God!
Did you finish your item, Brandon?
Yes, I did.
Excellent.
Closed out.
Okay.
All right. So
wait. Paul keeps asking.
What
is
the Silva Shuffle?
No,
Yes,
the
of course.
Silva Shuffle.
Okay.
What is the Silva Shuffle?
Do we need some cardboard?
Is this like a big boy thing? Like what is this?
No.
Like,
this is not a card game. This is a.
Are you gonna break dance? Are you gonna break
a
dance
proper
for us?
dance. Yeah, it's a proper brewery dance. So it actually is the brewery shuffle. So he has extended that to me. Bless him. But Paul and I, we have in our day with our rubber boots on. In the brewery, we always have music on in the brewery,
of course.
But it is almost always because it's almost always an entertainment value. But we always have it in the back, whether we have it for the customers or not.
Right.
So we toil in the brewery. It's a lot of toil, and so music actually makes our day really, really go. It's really a thing.
Yeah.
So. When we get that right song, we do the brewery shuffle. Yeah. In fact, we did the brewery shuffle with Pat McElhaney at Colby's wedding.
Yes!
That's on video, I'm pretty sure.
Wow.
Wow.
That is beautiful. I'm glad I brought that comment up.
We need some Mug Club content, and it's the shuffle.
Yep.
Yeah. So if you want to support Brandon's efforts at San Diego Beer.news, check out his Patreon for $5 a month. You get every single thing he publishes 1 hour early
Or more.
I know our listeners are the type of people that need their news early, and they appreciate the exclusivity. So that's your chance to get everything. I've even messed up and tried to share the articles before the public can read them, and I'm like, why won't this fucking leak work, Brandon? And I'm like, oh wait, it's not 7 yet. That you get the news at 6 if you're in the club. You get the news at 7 if you're a normal person. So get in the club is what I'm saying. And speaking of clubs, we've got an awesome club as well, and we're only here because of amazing people that support our efforts to bring the world the gospel of indie beer. And this week, those members at Pint Club are pint level or higher are Ben, Bill, who's listening right now, Brandon Christopher from Pariah, Brian Good, Captain Eli, Casey, Dan Diegos, Dante from Pariah, David Martin, our old producer, the second best producer in this show's history. Oh my God, we've got the guest star.
Wait. Nice. I was looking at the patrons. This is great.
No, I want to see puppies first.
Look at the puppies.
5 seconds at least.
Here, one
gosh.
He's a lover doodle.
A lover doodle. That's amazing.
Lover doodle.
Doug, Four Brews Podcast. Garen Friends, the Indie Beer Show brand, COVID-19 pandemically socially distancing Zorball LLC. Thank you, Maggie and Greg. Crescent Podcast. James, Jared, Jason, Jess from Ale Tales, Joaquin from Quav, Joseph, Joey from Hoppy Beer Gear, Juan, Judith Downey, the beer historian who is here, Kenneth, honorary patron for life, Larry Smith, Liz from Hofsbauer, Matt and Candice Bobineau who are here, Matt from The Perfect Pour, Miguel Loza, Mr. Peacock from Tapcraft, we love you, Mike Sahagan, Norman, OC Brewgirl, who is here, Pacific Beer Chat, all the way up in Canada, Robert from 13th Point, Rudy the Artist, Sergio Nigos, Tamales Las Golondrinas, and the best name in patron history, Vegas Jay. We love you all. Thank you so much for your support. Let's get through our number ones. Our time is long. Hang out. We're almost done. Abel, number one beer in San Diego you will miss if
the number one beer that I will miss, and I can rarely get it seasonal. I will make it quick. It is the Concept Dank and Sticky. So. Yes! Thank you.
Thank you. You like Dick and Sticky?
I'm glad you got that sorted out before you finish saying that.
Right?
Yeah.
I blame this.
Mine's gone, bro. I don't know what you're talking about.
I can't wait for the annual release of
Mine's gone.
The Hop Concept putting out amazing beers. Totally, I totally agree that Dank and Sticky is a great beer.
Yeah.
Wonderful choice, Abel. Brandon, number one beer you would miss if you couldn't get everything we have here in San Diego.
Same brewery, different brand. One of the 17,000 brands of the Port Brewing and Lost Abbey Empire. Carnival Brett Saison is everything I want. It's not the most special. Not the most specialist beer that's ever been done. I'm not like Duck Duck Goose. That's like, dude, oh my God, I can't afford that. But it's really fantastic. I mean, that's a great beer. But like, as far as like the beers, I don't buy cases of beer, but I buy cases of this beer because I enjoy the bread expression changing over time, and I just love that beer. Brett Saison Carnival has a New Orleans kind of thing going on too, much like the G-Fizz. So I love that, and I would miss it if I couldn't get it if I was in some place where they did not distribute or ship.
That's awesome. And absolutely a terrific beer, and a beer that you could buy a case of and put in your closet for 6 or 7 years, no problem.
Yeah, $9 a bottle, you can do that. You have to really want it, but
yeah, absolutely. And overlooked, I think, overlooked incredible beer. Estella, number one.
You guys have talked about this brewery, but this is honestly probably my favorite beer in San Diego, Glitz and Glam from Epic.
Ooh, nice. Making a kettle sour. What?
Yes, I love the color. I love the taste. I love everything about this beer. It's been my beer since they released it. I can drink truckloads of it. So yeah, literally truckloads of it. And I love that beer. And if I couldn't have it, I'd be really sad. So
how much does a truckload cost?
I don't care. It doesn't matter.
Yes,
It doesn't matter. I will buy it of this
He's asking
beer.
for
Like,
research purpose. He might be he's trying to send loads to you.
And it's award-winning beer like GABF. I mean,
Yeah.
shoot, like and it's something you can just have because you're in San Diego. But if you weren't here, you couldn't have it. It's a fantastic beer.
I can't get a truckload of it.
Yeah, right. Not at all. Not at
Well,
all.
you can get a truckload because they would have to actually get it on a truck to bring it to you.
hey, there you
Oh.
go. There you go.
You would have to set up a new distributor deal to bring it up there. But did you have any other beers that you wanted to add, Chuck, for things that you miss from San Diego?
Oh my! So I hadn't sorted this one out.
It's totally cool. You don't have to. We can just move on. It's no big deal.
This,
All right. So for me,
move on.
for me, this is no surprise. Of course, if I was going to choose a brewery, it would be Pariah. But I made myself pick a beer, and it was very, very hard. I know, it's shocking news, right?
I'm in shock.
I know the beer. So the beer I would miss the most is the essence of freaking Galaxy. That's LeBron Hayes from Pariah Brewing Co. My favorite beer over the last almost 4 years. Thank you, Brian Mitchell, for brewing that just for me. I know just for now. That was by the way, that was after I eliminated the 4 beers I've made myself at Pariah Brewing. So I mean, it was pretty tough competition. I had to compete with my own beers.
You can't
I know,
pick your
right?
own beers.
I know. I at least did that. So, Chuck, best social media channel to keep up with all things Silva Brewing. Thank you for staying with us in the serious OT.
Yes.
Yeah, Facebook and Instagram. So at Silva Brewing, of course. # Silva Brewing.
That was one of the things I liked about when I looked you up. I didn't have to think about it. I just typed Silva Brewing. Everything went right where I expected it to. I always like it when a brewery can do that, and it's not like Silva _ brewing PB or something weird. So anyway, at Silva Brewing throughout all social media channels. For me, I think the best is Instagram, but obviously, you may like Facebook. They're pretty equal. So whichever platform you like the most, make sure you follow Silva Brewing, keep up. Then you'll know in a couple weeks when Silva Stout is released, and you can get in on that home shipment. Definitely. Definitely do the mixed case with Vivace. I really.
That's not how you say it. That's not how you say it. Bavachi.
I don't have enough.
We were saying red sauce, grandma's red sauce.
Exactly. All of that. If you want to reach us, I don't know why you'd want to, but if you want to reach us, we're at cheers@indie.beer. We're Indie Beer Show on Twitter, the Indie Beer Show on Instagram and Facebook. Instaface and Bookgram.
Nice.
And if you want to leave us a voicemail, if you want to be the first person, by the way, I've got 3 weeks left on the show. If you want to leave me a voicemail, that's 619-798-7. I'm sorry, 619-798-6033.
I have some things to say.
Right on. Estella. Next week is the annual women's show.
It is, you guys.
Can you give us a little preview? Who's going to be on the show?
We're going to have Cynthia from 3 Punk Ales. We're going to have Carmen from Mujeres and, Border X. And we're going to have Beth from
Beth Devin.
Yeah, from
everything. Yes.
And I'm still waiting to make sure that Danielle can do this. Danielle Rodriguez from Belching Beaver.
All right.
So this is who we're looking forward to for the women's show. So please, you're not going to be able to get the beers because each woman is going to pick a beer that they want to share with everybody else.
That's cool.
I will put out the list before, but still. And if you have any questions, please send them to us because this is a show that I really want to be interactive. So please send the questions to us on Instagram, on Facebook. Just send them to us, please. Thanks.
That is awesome. We are like 23 minutes minimum into OT. This has been a wonderful show. For everyone that showed up and commented in the sidebar, thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Chuck, thank you so much for spending so much of your time with us.
Thank you, Chuck.
For Estella,
Thanks for having
Brandon,
me.
you are quite welcome, sir. Producer Abel,
Sorry
myself, I'm not quite dead yet, but I'm dying quickly. You've been listening to the Indie Beer Show. Thank you, and good night.
Right?